So this is roughly around the time now you're coming, so I said when you're 14 you kind of got hooked up with CAF. How did that happen? So this is kind of like around that same time?
Yep. So 9th grade is when I found out about the Challenge Athletes Foundation, and I go to my processes in Orlando, Florida, and at that time they had, I think it was some sort of Paralympic competition, but it was at Disney's Wide World of Sports, and it was the kind of competition where anybody could sign up, and it was kind of a highlight, like I don't know if it was a world championship or a nationals, but anybody could sign up, and like this was when Paralympics was still somewhat participatory.
You're like it's open, but it's kind of a big deal for some reason,
But anybody could do it. Like if you'd never ran in your life, you could still show up and do it. And he had told me about this Paralympic style track and field meet, and he said, I really think you should do it. And I said, well, I don't have a leg, like I don't even know how I do it. And he said, apply for a grant from the Challenge Athletes Foundation, we'll get you a leg and we'll have you out running for this meet. And so I did, and I got my grant. And as you know, typically adaptive sports equipment isn't covered by insurance companies, which is why, you know, these running prosthetics is just so critical and so difficult to get because of the cost. And so it was just incredible to be able to get this piece of equipment and to realize how free and how easy and smooth it was to be able to run, because you know, running on an everyday walking leg, not easy.
It's not what that is meant for. You find out when you run on a running leg, you're like, that's why that sucks so bad.
Yeah, I see why like people actually have that and don't run in their everyday leg. And so he made this running leg for me, and I had the meltdowns of all meltdowns. We've all been there, we're girls, right? The kind of meltdown.
This morning. Yesterday.
Where you get the whole ugly cry and you're like,
it starts here.
Yes.
It's just that it's the
and
whole
like
body.
no words are coming out, just like weird sounds. So I had this like epic, I don't even think I've ever had a meltdown like this in my entire life, still to this day.
You pulled the plug on a lot of stuff,
Where I just couldn't do it. I was like, I'm not getting out there. I'm not running this 60 and 100 meters. And you know, everybody was like confused as why, like, are you afraid of, and it wasn't that I was afraid of falling. It wasn't even that I was afraid of coming in last place. It was that up until I was 14, I had always worn a cosmetic cover over my leg. And you know, the kind of janky foam cover that you
paint. For some reason you're like, looks good. Yeah, I had the
You
same
paint
one.
skin tone and then you look and you're like, it doesn't even match my other skin tone. Like, who am I even fooling, you know? And so I had this like cosmetic, and I lived in northern Michigan. So if you fell, which did happen quite a bit, like the chunk of the foam would come out and you'd have to get, it's like, I can't even believe like how, like you look back and you're like, I really worked that hard to cover something up to make it so cosmetic, and it wasn't even functional. It didn't even look like my other leg. But it was just the security of having, you know, not having it exposed, of not wanting to look different. Like if I wore pants, I wanted it to be filled out. And if I wore a skirt or dress, which, you know, was torturous for me, but to appease my mom, like, you know, at least it looked somewhat skin tone. And so I had always
some nylon, some pantyhose on it, you know, for Easter.
Exactly. Yeah, only Easter, Christmas. And so he had told me, my prosthetist, he had said, well, you know, if you run, like when you run, you're not going to be able to cover, we can't make a cosmetic cover over this. I was like, yeah, I know. And it was the feeling of the fear of being seen and exposed for the first time. You know, you're awkward, you're 14. I mean, you know, you lost your leg at a young age too, and you're still trying to figure out who you are, your identity. Like,
it's already hard enough to be 14.
To fit in, exactly.
Just to be
and
14,
just this,
on top of so many other things.
Exactly. And so being out there on the track and having to be seen for the first time and like step out and show the world this is who I am was a terrifying moment.
Well, it seems like it was kind of like a moment too where it was like there was finally space for you.
Yes.
Like someone finally gave you a spot at the table and you're just like,
I don't know if I'm ready.
Yeah, I've been fighting so long and so hard. Yeah, it can't be this easy.
Yes, I don't know if I'm ready. Exactly. And just to be like, and you know, I thought you know, even as a girl, I was like, you know, the running leg, I thought it was so ugly. Like there was nothing pretty about it looking, and I'm like, no, I'm not gonna run out there and be seen
it wasn't cool like it's
it
cool
wasn't
now.
cool like it was now.
Cool.
Yeah. And so, But the meet director said, well, we're not starting this 16 meters until you get to the start line. So time's a ticking.
I wish that was how it was now.
Right?
Yeah,
like whenever you wanted to run, you could.
Wait.
And I had held up all these other girls. So I was like, all right, it's time to do it. But
oh my gosh, so this is at the event. Like,
at the
right
event.
as it's about to go.
This was before like things actually were like
the guy with the starting guns, like.
Yeah, exactly. They would never let you do that now.
No. Yeah.
But, and so I ran, and it was just all the things that you are afraid of people laughing or judging or staring or whatever they might be thinking, just like totally dissipated because I was able to run and I was doing something I so loved and enjoyed. And it was a huge turning point in my life of self-acceptance, of realizing that I was never going to be able to change this. Nothing I ever did, no cosmetic cover would ever hide this, and that I didn't need to be ashamed. Like, I didn't need to be ashamed that I was a woman as an amputee wearing a prosthetic, and also that I didn't need to be ashamed of my story and where I'd come from and what had happened in my life. And so it was just an incredible moment, a beautiful moment, powerful of like, I'm going to accept myself as who I am, and I'm never going to be ashamed, and I'm going to be able to tell my story and be proud of it. And so thank goodness, for the Challenge Athletes Foundation for getting involved in sport and that powerful moment of learning to run.
Yeah. Oh my God, I have chills, like even in my phantom foot. Like that was I was like, this is super powerful. Like that's a really powerful story. It's a powerful testament. And so then you basically grew up like with CAF. So you got more and more involved with them, and you got closer and closer. So that as you got closer and closer, like I know your athletic career was taking off, but then you also kind of turned it around into a form of mentorship. Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. I started to become an official ambassador for CAF when I was a freshman in college at UCLA, and at that time I didn't quite know what I was doing, but just the opportunity of being involved with CAF and meeting so many young children who went through the same things that I did of growing up and not having a role model or like a hero to look up to.
There was nothing.
Nothing. And internet was just starting to be a thing. I think I still had
dial-up.
Like
dial-up, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my first website was like the Thai Beanie Babies website, and then I didn't go on for like 2 years.
Yeah, the dial-up where like to load a page took like 2 minutes.
Yeah, I was like, and I have no patience. So that's why I was like, there's no time for this internet.
And but just meeting through CAF, the events, and so many young children, and many who also had similar experience of being adopted from a foreign country, was just so meaningful for me to get to know them, to help them. And that was a great thing about being involved with CAF, is just having an avenue of meeting so many kids that wanted to be involved in sport, who very similarly where they come from back in their hometowns, they're the only child. They're the only one. Yeah. And to help like normalize it and to help them through that journey was just something really, really awesome. It's still one of the greatest opportunities that I have to be a mentor and to help children in that way.
Yeah, even now, kids still need good leadership now.
But you're doing the same thing in that same way of I know you're so involved with the Amputee Coalition in that camp. It's just amazing as women that we have an opportunity to help so many kids that look up to us and can say that Lacey is awesome and she's beautiful and she's all these great things, and such a great role model for young kids, especially young girls, to see that. Because I think being an amputee as a woman is very different than as a male.
Oh yeah.
Just
the cosmetic thing alone.
Yeah. I know so many young girls are worried about if they're going to be pretty enough, if boys are going to be interested in them, if they can wear dresses and still look pretty and cute, and just shoes and all these, feminine things, and they wonder and they have challenges of can I be seen as all those things still? And then, there's people like us, and a great reminder that you can be all those things and more.
So often, especially even being older and becoming an amputee, I know a lot of amputees are told about what's available to them. They're told about, you won't be able to wear heels, you won't be able to do this, you won't be able to run anymore, or if you want to run, you can't get a running leg. There's all these different just barriers constantly. I feel like being a woman in general, you're already hurdling over a lot of obstacles, but being a woman with a disability, it's just there's layers and layers and layers, and you have experienced a lot of those firsthand. And you have made an incredible role model, not just for athletes with disabilities, but especially female athletes with disabilities. And again, like we're in a really cool time just in the world to be a woman in sport. Like women, like we're coming up right now. Yeah. Like just recently there was that Nike campaign, you know, it's like the crazy, like what does it mean to be crazy as far as like women athletes. And I know like when I get asked in interviews about like being a female athlete, like I get like my like inner Danny DeVito comes out. I'm like, wait, what does that mean? I get real angry because it's like, what does it mean? I feel like as women, we are always told so much about ourselves all the time, like what it means to be feminine, that we need to be quiet, that we need to accommodate other people. And that's compounded when you have a disability. You know, like you're so used to trying to make yourself smaller, to not cause a big scene about being different in a crowd of people that don't look like you.
Yeah.
Like you have that on so many different levels, and that's like so powerful, I feel like, for people to see, especially kids, because I mean, like it's hard to grow up to be different. And I think the older we find out, like the older that we get, we find out that everybody's different, and like that's the one thing that kind of brings us together, which is cool. And something that I've always admired about you is like you've worked with Nike now for a couple years.
Yeah, just I've been a sponsored athlete since 2015, and it's been an amazing relationship. I've just really proud of what we've done together, and the Rio campaign, the Unlimited Scout Bassett ad that came out right before Rio was the very first time that Nike had ever done an ad with somebody that had a disability, and you know, had ever done a global ad for somebody with a disability. And so, which is just kind of amazing considering the history of Nike and the access to the athletes that they've had. But it was
everybody's like waiting for that Nike call.
Yeah,
like I'm checking my
and
phone like every 5 minutes.
That was the first time, you know. And so, but you know, they've done, you know, Tatiana's a Nike athlete, and they've done an amazing job of showcasing and also highlighting. Showcasing's not the right word. Highlighting and shedding light on that athletes come in all different looks, and they come from all different backgrounds, but that at the pure essence of who they are is still an athlete. Yeah. And it doesn't matter if you do it in a chair with a prosthetic. I think that's one of the things I really love about what Nike, the message that they send out is, if you notice in any of the pieces that they feature with somebody of difference, they never highlight that difference, because the audience is going to see it and know what that difference is, but they don't want to stress that. The creativity behind what they do is really the pure athlete and the pure person, which I have so much respect for, because in a lot of things that we do, the first thing they always want to talk about, or they always want to highlight, is the disability. Yeah. And it's like, well, aside from that, you know, you want to be seen as a bad A athlete. Yeah. Purely not as a woman with a disability who's an athlete, you know, just as a pure athlete. And so I love that they understand that, and they portray that in all the marketing that they do. Yeah,
and Nike, I mean, like Nike is Nike. Like Nike is like the big dog, like of everything. And like that's so interesting because, again, like you do interviews, you do video projects, whatever, and it's very true right now that people want to highlight the disability, and you're like, listen, I don't wake up every day and cry for 20 minutes about what happened to me. Like I wake up, I put my leg on, and then I go train, because that's my job, is training, not crying. And although I would get paid handsomely in that too if I needed to. But that's always been the big thing for me too, is being a female in sport, because you're like, what does that mean? Because I'm here to train. Like when I'm on the track, I'm not like obsessing about my femininity. Like I'm there.
Or when they highlight or do something with a male athlete, they're not saying, LeBron James, a male athlete.
Yeah, they're like, look at that guy. Good for him.
Yeah, like they're not stressing his gender, but for females, they do stress our gender when it comes to sports. Yeah. And they don't do that with men. So it's like, well, maybe we need to change the narrative of that conversation.
Yeah, because it comes down to the sport, and that's been like, when I was introduced to Paralympic sport, I came from like able-bodied sports, so I was completely ignorant and undereducated about parasports, because I thought I was just going to come in and just like stomp on these like people with disabilities, and I got swiftly spanked. And
no, but you're really good now.
You know, but you know, like, because you're training. Yeah. But that's because it's become about the sport, and I think like, Nike's giving a gift also just to the world of Paralympics, because like para is really trying, but there's still like this weird shadow of like feel good, like good for those disabled people.
Great to see them out there trying.
And it's not, you're like, honestly, sometimes I wish it was like that because I'm really busting my booty to make this team.
Or I think I really think there are a lot of people that, you know, if they had no physical challenge, how many of them could do what you do every day?
Yeah.
How many of them could, you know, leg aside, how many of them could put in that kind of work, make those kind of sacrifices, the commitment, the dedication to do what you do? So it's like, it's impressive whether or not you have a disability, but, and I think that's the point that, you know, I like to, and, you know, you're trying to make too, is that you being a pure athlete dedicated to what you do is incredible, and this is just an asterisk / afterthought, you know, that you're doing it. Oh, and she just happens to be doing it on a prosthetic.
Yeah, and I mean, like, we're not here to prove a point at this. Like, at this point, you're like, I love this sport. It feeds me. I'm enjoying it. I have put a lot of investment into it now, and like, this is who I am.
Right.
And I just happen to have a leg that comes off, and you know, switch them out.
Yeah, I just do it a little differently than you do.